our channel. Jai Sachidanand, Jai Gurudev. Hello and welcome everyone to my new series Adhyatma Yoga. Adhyatma Yoga meaning the nature of the true self. It is a science that deals with the nature of your true self, the Atma. The study, the contemplation and practicing this yoga abhyas is Adhyatma Yoga. I hope you like our video. Thank you.
Please note, this is an excerpt taken from the book Adhyatma Yoga by Deva Rao Kulkarni. It's also known as Dhyan Yoga, Mano Nigraha Yoga, and Samadhi. Let's begin by breaking down the meaning of the word Adhyatma. Adi means around, Atman means the self. This is the knowledge of the highest self, Adhyatma. This is the true knowledge, as mentioned in the Upanishads, the true nature of the self. The real self is identified falsely with the body, the vital force, the organs of action, the sense organs, the mind, the intellect, the ego, and these are all together assembled in one whole, and we think this is what I am. Sometimes man identifies himself with outer things and feels that I am rich or I am poor. But the identification with entities ranging from the body to the ego is a predominant factor, while the identification with outer things is secondary. One conceals his own nature or he himself to be the body and the rest as mine. When he says his body has become weak, he objectifies his body. Unknowingly, he takes a stand in his true nature, which is different and apart from his body. So, this corporeal plane from the body to the ego is called Adhyatmic Prapanch. So far, science has only succeeded in knowing about the physical plane called anatomy and physiology of the body. It's the science of the functioning of the various body parts, speech and sense organs. Psychology, on the other hand, investigates the function of the mind and the consequences. But it's only the Adhyatma Yoga and the knowledge in the Upanishads that talk about the real nature of the self. It transcends the ego, the I sense, on the firm ground of universal experience, and by means of self-inquiry and investigating with a comprehensive vision of life. Such a self-inquiry will result in intuition so deep and immense that there will be no residue of the duality, such as the investigator, the investigated, and the investigation. It's like Jiddu Krishnamurti, who said, "The observer is being observed." Unless and until we transcend the realm of duality, which is the mind, the body, the intellect, and the ego, and the outer world, along with the concepts of infinite time, space, etc., it is not possible to reach the eternal truth. So, the real aspirant should know this truth, and he has to turn away from all these non-eternal results because they are materialistic and temporary. He has to fix his attention on the cognition of the true nature of the self. Only then can he get the complete salvation from the bondage of samsara. This truth is stated in Kathopanishad. The boy Nachiket asked the following question to Yamaraj, who is the deity of death. Nachiketa said, "If I am fit and you too, sir, are pleased with me, then tell me that thing which you see as different from virtue, different from vice, different from cause and effect, and different from the past and future. Tell me the name of that thing." A little context about Nachiketa. He was a child prodigy in Hindu Itihas along with Prahalad, Dhruv, Eklavya, and Shravan Kumar. Nachiketa observes that the cattle become weak and aged after some years and eventually died. He often asked his teacher questions regarding the nature of death. What differentiated the living from the dead? His friends also mentioned heaven and hell, but when Nachiketa asked where they were, nobody knew. He asked his teacher the secret of death, and the teacher would jokingly tell him, "Oh Nachiketa, only Yamraj, the god of death, can answer your questions." It so happened that once Nachiketa saw his father Uddalak perform a sacrifice in which he was required to give away all his worldly possession. Nachiketa saw that the cows which were being given away were old and sick. He was upset by the inappropriate way his father observed the sacrifice. So he approaches his father and asks him to whom was he, Nachiketa, being given, because he too was a possession of his father and hence needed to be given away. The sage was furious and he replied, "I give you to the god of death, Yamraj." But to this 8-year-old child, his father's words were absolute. He left his father's ashram for the Yamraj's abode. After a long journey, he reached the gates of hell. Yamraj was away. Nachiketa waited at the gate for 3 days and nights. Yamraj returned astride his buffalo holding a mace and a noose. He was very surprised to see a young boy waiting for him. While everyone in the world feared him and got scared on his approach, to find someone waiting before him to die was unique. The boy was not scared of him. So impressed was Yamraj that he felt guilty to have made the boy wait without hospitality for 3 whole days and offered to grant him 3 wishes. Nachiketa was the wise one. To understand the nature and reality of life, he chose the following wishes. First, to be allowed to return to his father alive and that his father should no longer be angry with him. Second, to be taught the proper performance of a Vedic fire sacrifice in order to gain a seat in heaven. And the third and the very important, to be given knowledge about life after death. So, Nachiketa expressed his desire to know the secret of death. Yamraj was perplexed because he did not expect such a question from a young boy. Before answering the third question, Yamraj tested him. He offered him all sorts of worldly pleasures, but Nachiketa was firm. He begged that even the sages with the deep realization did not know the secret of death with certainty. Nachiketa could take land, gold, cattle, or a full life of pleasure, but he chose to take the answer for the real nature of his existence. The Yamraj expounded the knowledge of the self. The self is the chariot's passenger. The body is the chariot. Buddhi, consciousness, is the chariot's driver. The mind is the rein. The 5 senses, the Indriya, are the chariot's horses. The objects perceived by the senses are the chariot's path. The self, whose symbol is Om, is the same as the omnipresent Brahman. The goal of the wise is to know this self. The self is like a rider. The horses are the senses, which he guides through the maze of desires. After that, it is the self that remains. The self is immortal. One must discriminate the self from the body, which is the seat of desire. Inability to realize Brahman results in one being enmeshed in the cycle of rebirth. Understanding the self leads to moksha. Just as a person changes clothes, the soul changes the body once it gets old. We are born, we grow, we are adults, we age and we die, to be reborn again. It is cyclic. Each life carries a balance of karma, good or bad, that decides the quality of life in the next birth. Only in the living state can we strive to break this cycle by making the balance zero. If that happens, we attain moksha and are liberated forever. But by mere contemplation, the knowledge of the self cannot be absorbed by the soul. We need a God realized Sadguru, a spiritual master who has already been there and done that. Just by serving the lotus feet of the Sadguru, self knowledge blossoms in your heart cave. Arise, awake, and learn from the wise ones. For the path is sharp as a razor's edge, and you will need Sadguru's grace on your head. Jai Sachidanand, Jai Gurudev. To be continued in the next video series.